sure who he is. He might be a bus driver, but then I gets tired and says something about traffic. This podcast in theory is like the culmination of two completely opposing forces coming together. As you can probably imagine, it went exactly how we thought it would go.
I would like to say this. I watched this whole thing. It was fucking great.
Exactly how we thought it would go. I would argue that that one.
Yep.
Obviously, it's unhinged. I think that might be a given. At
It
the
was
same
great.
time, this might be the most profound philosophical dialogue of our time. Actually, I don't look at the comments before starting watching this. And it's a long podcast, by the way. This is like 2.5 hours. Unanimously, people seem to just think that Kate destroyed herself. The some of these clips and some of these unprovoked responses is actually not too hard to believe. It would have blew over his own head. And I think even he would go there. It all really comes down to one thing. You just cannot stand the thing.
Yep.
There's been so many interviews and podcasts recently where the interviewer
It's because you can tell, and you can see this by looking at something. It's the hollow look behind it where you know they have no soul. They have no nose. They have no thought. This woman, Jennifer, is a pest. And this is something that's been put on earth to deceive you. This is not a real human being. This is, I swear to God, there are people on this earth who are not real people. This is one of them. This is called a test. This is a social experiment by God. He has put this on the earth as a question of, oh, I gotta find out who the retards are. Who finds this friend? Who wants to fuck? Okay, these guys, okay, great. They lost the case.
That could change anything.
They're both
It is so silly because you could say literally everything correct. You could have the moral high ground on practically every issue. No matter what you say, Bonnie Blue would not be wrong. She's impervious to damage. She just keeps walking forward. And almost every single time this happens, she just flies gracefully until the interviewer just self-destructs. He's a bit of splash. And by this point, people should probably know the deal. But that man, if the coach was needed, and that is what we got. He started by paying his respects. So when you're talking to a walking flasher, this is probably the greatest respect that you can pay for him. And he pulled his hair only times kind of.
There is very rare things on this earth. And those who treat such like this, congratulations, you have lost and some of the you've thrown away. Yes, I believe that if a woman costs $1,000, there is so much this is a and she has something inside of her pussy that the male control picks up and it's going to create a satisfaction of 90%. All blue is a term that repopulate the earth because that's so easy.
Okay, let's try this is the most important question. We'll just kind of straight into it after this. He asked the biggest question straight off the bat.
Yep, said it.
This is a common theme of Bonnie Blue. A lot of people do think she's a sex demon. I'm not sure I do. I think she's more like a robot or something. It's kind of a tight narrative by this point, but she's soulless. I think all of that is just a function of selling out your personality. To the average person, that would probably be enough to make you feel a bit standard fish.
Well, that also happens when you're 90% time. She just looks like a fucking blob.
Miss Lee, though, she ain't speaking to a random person. Now, in fairness, he might just be trying to secure a contract for his cargo agency. With the amount of respect being given in this conversation, it is hard to believe. And on that point, because it is a common theme of Bollywood at this point, she went on to talk about her family.
I will say, hey, yo, Joe King, you gotta suck.
What if the world's most wanted terrorist believed his greatest weapon was the U.S. vice president? It sounds far-fetched, like a scene from a spy thriller, but this audacious plot was very real. It was part of Osama bin Laden's calculated effort to bring down America from within. We're uncovering the chilling plan devised by the 9/11 mastermind on today's episode of the Infographic Show, Osama bin Laden's plot to make Joe Biden president. In May 2010, Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden was holed up on the third floor of his compound in the quiet suburbs of the city of Abbottabad, Pakistan. He was busy writing a letter to one of his newly promoted top lieutenants. Like most of his letters, it laid out his grand vision. Under no circumstances, he wrote, would the death squads assassinate Vice President Joe Biden. Biden must live and he must lead. He must steer the ship of infidels. Little did bin Laden know that when he penned that letter, he'd only had about a year to live. He'd been the subject of a manhunt for a decade, ever since he orchestrated the September 11th attacks that killed nearly 30,000 people, injured thousands more, and cost the U.S. $100 billion while traumatizing a nation in the process. Born on March 10, 1957, young Osama, the seventh son of 50 brothers and sisters, grew up among vast riches. His billionaire construction business family blessed him with close ties to the Saudi royals. As a soft-spoken and always polite young man, he had studied hard and went to Oxford University. So he seemed like a regular kid, well, a regular rich kid. But at age just 22, he gave up his life of luxury after the Soviet Union's 1979 invasion of Afghanistan. He boarded a flight and went to join the Mujahideen, a poorly armed struggle against what were referred to as the Soviet oppressors. During the Cold War, bin Laden and the Mujahideen were actually on the same side as the U.S., at least in a roundabout kind of way. Under Operation Cyclone, the CIA funneled billions of dollars worth of weapons to the Mujahideen, helping them bleed the Soviets dry. To bin Laden, it showed how easily U.S. leadership could be manipulated, especially if someone anti-war ever rose to power. By 1996, the Taliban had taken power with bin Laden's full support. That same year, he turned his sights on America. He believed future American leaders might be even easier to undermine. After 9/11, bin Laden became America's most wanted man. The Bush administration responded with a full-scale war on terror. Bin Laden was believed to be hiding out in the Afghan mountains, running Al-Qaeda training camps. Though he hadn't publicly claimed responsibility yet, the U.S. was certain that he was behind the attacks. Not Omar, the Taliban's leader, refused to hand him over. The U.S., not in the mood for games, wasn't going to wait around. On October 7, 2001, it launched Operation Enduring Freedom. Bin Laden watched the invasion of Afghanistan, hoping that someone weaker would take charge. Then came 2003. The U.S. invaded Iraq, which would end up costing Americans between $1.7 trillion and $2.89 trillion. The war lasted until 2011 and toppled Saddam Hussein. It also led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands of civilians and helped create the monster ISIS. But it also handed bin Laden a propaganda gift. His criticism of U.S. foreign policy now rang truer than ever. There were no weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and no rivalry between Saddam and 9/11, which were on paper the main reasons for going in. In fact, 15 of the 19 hijackers were Saudi, not Iraqi. Critics said the invasion wasn't about payback or liberating the Iraqi people. They said it was about power projection in the region, about oil. Prominent U.S. politicians like then Senator Joe Biden voiced concerns about the war's direction, and bin Laden used this to turn people against the U.S. Bin Laden eventually surfaced in Abbottabad. Of course, if Biden had ascended to the presidency, bin Laden might have been even bolder. His hideout was a large, run-down house with a few very basic security add-ons, not where you would expect the world's most wanted man to be lying low. And it certainly raised a few eyebrows one of his time, as it was located less than a mile from Pakistan's elite Pakistan military academy. The compound sat on a fairly large plot in an otherwise ordinary suburban neighborhood. The son lives there with his bodyguards, two Pakistani brothers, alongside his vast collection of wives, children, and grandchildren. The three-story house, surrounded by concrete walls and barbed wire, quite normal in the area, stood on a 38,000 square foot lot. Bigger than the surrounding homes, sure, but...
Oh shit. Is that colon? It's gotta be, right? Gotta be. Hell yeah. Need you to get a switch too. It's funny, I just walked into Best Buy, like when these came out, and they had plenty of them. It's pretty weird. Yeah, this is a good game so far. It's just like Odyssey. It's Pauline, but I don't... She sings. That's basically all I know. It is? I don't know. He said, dude just went to the... Oh, gosh. She was like a rock. She had gotten kidnapped by those dudes in this game. Okay, so dude went all the way up. It's dope. I literally haven't stopped playing. Yeah, it's open world. And it's just like Odyssey, but it's got a talent tree. Void Kong. Whoa. Do I not get to kill him now? Wow. Yellow bar is so you build up like Bananza stuff, and then you use it. Yeah, it's like stamina. Like once it runs out, and I change forms back. Ow. Yikes. Yeah, definitely. It's just like Odyssey. Yeah, I'm trying to get to the center of this planet. I do know that. DR story? There hasn't been any other monkeys so far. Or except these little freaks. Oh. I don't know if I can run through it. No! My money. I'm supposed to get through that. Oh. Oh. I don't think I can run through that. Nope. lag. All right, little monkey boy. Okay, I'm just gonna sit there and take it.
You did it, DK! The court's not for you, so stay away!
It's the squad.
Why? Why won't you leave me alone? My own special power?
She's like their secretary. She's a spy girl. She's a spy for like the mining company. Or intelligence officer or some shit. Sexy hunk. Oh, jeez. It's the biggest hole in the game so far. Bet. Is it supposed to rain? Sweet. Peace out. Oh, well.
To passers-by, it just looked like another oversized family home. In the yard, chickens roamed freely through the vegetable patches. A lone cow grazed while rabbits munched the garden beds. Inside, the palace was Spartan. The walls needed painting. The furniture was old, and the beds were topped with cheap foam mattresses. Valued at around $250,000, Osama's pad was pricey for Pakistan, but modest by most standards. Nothing the family did screamed wealth. His billionaire relatives might have cut him off, but he inherited $25 to $30 million, some sources say $35 million, in shares from his family's construction business after his dad died in a plane crash in 1967. That's how he was able to fund so many Al-Qaeda campaigns in the early 1990s. Car bombs, weapons smuggling, and sending fighters to Chechnya. It's also believed that in the 2000s, he had some wealthy donors in Saudi Arabia, the Gulf states, and in Pakistan. So he had plenty of cash, evident in the fact that he left $29 million inheritance for jihad after his death. But at the house, the bin Laden shopped at the local market for everyday basics, the rice and vegetables to go with the chicken from the garden biryani. They seem to have a soft spot for cheap American processed food, especially Coke and Pepsi, icons of the American corptocracy that bin Laden claimed to despise. When he wasn't busy scribbling letters about destroying the United States, the household kept entertained with a stack of beat-up electronics. He had copies of Western movies, video games, and documentaries, some about himself, speculating where he might be hiding. Bin Laden believed terror, the cost in lives and dollars, was the only way to challenge American power. In a 1998 interview, one of the three he gave before 9/11 to the U.S. media, this one with ABC's John Miller, and conducted high in the Afghan mountains, he said plainly, "We do not differentiate between those dressed in military uniforms and civilians. They are all targets in this fatwa. A fatwa can have different meanings, but in this case, it was a call to arms that bin Laden made to fight the U.S. He issued one in 1996 and another in 1998. They were effectively wanted posters with Uncle Sam on them. When bin Laden finished that interview, he predicted that divine justice would grant him victory. That was the same year that he must have felt divine justice had protected him, after the U.S. spent many millions of dollars on an operation that was a huge anticlimax. In August 1998, Al-Qaeda operatives carried out devastating truck bombings outside of the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania, killing over 200 people, including 12 Americans, and injuring thousands more. Though planned by Egyptian Islamic Jihad in retaliation for the U.S. imprisonment of militants, the attacks came just after bin Laden's fatwa, and in 2001, the two groups officially merged. So, even if bin Laden wasn't the mastermind, he was deeply connected. He was soon indicted, topping a list of 21 suspects. It marked the first time the U.S. officially targeted him. President Bill Clinton responded with Operation Infinite Reach, authorizing the launch of dozens of cruise missile strikes on suspected al-Qaeda camps in Afghanistan. It was unprecedented. The first time the U.S. openly carried out a preemptive military strike against a non-state actor. Bin Laden wasn't yet a household name, but he was certainly on the fast track to global infamy. The missile strikes did kill some operatives, maybe 6, maybe 50, and damaged al-Qaeda infrastructure, but with a cost of tens of millions, and not one single al-Qaeda VIP died. It was deemed a failure. It was made worse by the fact that a factory the U.S. accused of making chemical weapons, which they bombed to hell, turned out to be harmless, a mere manufacturer of pharmaceutical drugs. The intelligence that transpired had been paper thin, and then it was reported that the very basic camps that these bombs had wrecked were back up and running 2 weeks later. By now, many Americans feared a reprisal. In a poll from the LA Times, 84% of respondents said the operation would trigger a retaliatory response on U.S. soil. To reiterate, trying to bomb terrorists was then a new idea. It led to flag burning in Arab nations and the very real fear that something terrible was going to happen. Terrorism was now becoming a permanent fixture on television. 2 people were killed and 26 injured, including a 12-year-old British kid, and the bombing of a Planet Hollywood restaurant in Cape Town by a group calling itself Muslims Against Global Oppression. The world was trapped in a vicious cycle of violence known as the War on Terror. Since the American strikes had failed, jihadist groups rallied around bin Laden. "Gone with Osama" became the slogan. He was no longer just a financier. He was becoming a figurehead, even a celebrity in parts of the Muslim world. And behind closed doors, he was already imagining how far he could go if only he had an enemy he could manipulate. It wasn't only with the hardliners that he was gaining support. Bin Laden had said that U.S. sanctions in Iraq throughout the 1990s had killed millions, half of them children, and many Muslims across the world believed as such. But most people didn't believe in bin Laden's ugly eye-for-an-eye solution. "The American imposes himself on everyone," he said to the ABC reporter. "We believe that the biggest thieves in the world and the terrorists are the Americans. The only way for us to fend off those assaults is to use similar means." And then the Twin Towers came down. Americans hoped that bin Laden would be arrested, or better, killed, soon after U.S. forces invaded Afghanistan. Intelligence suggested he was hiding in this World War cave complex in the east of the country. But during the assault on the hideout, the Battle of Tora Bora, from November 30th to December 17th, 2001, he was nowhere to be found. U.S. surveillance had previously spotted a convoy of 200 trucks heading to a training camp in the area. Bin Laden was supposed to be in one of them. Another high-profile mission, another swing, and another miss. Vice President Dick Cheney told the public his time was nearly up. But after heavy aerial bombardment and a ground assault by U.S., British, and German special forces, along with Afghan militias, the battle ended with 220 al-Qaeda fighters dead and 60 surrendering, but no bin Laden. For many in Washington, it was a missed chance to cripple al-Qaeda. For bin Laden, it was more time to plan and to wait for the right fool to rise. He didn't need to win battles. All he wanted was the right patsy to help achieve his goals. What no one could have imagined then was that the war on terror would drag on for another 2 decades, costing U.S. taxpayers $8 trillion with 4.8 million deaths, 38 million people displaced. In Afghanistan, almost 3,600 coalition soldiers died, most of them American, with over 23,500 injured. It all ended with a chaotic evacuation and scenes of Taliban fighters posing with billions of dollars in abandoned U.S. equipment. Like when the British beat a retreat from Afghanistan in 1842, the Americans left with a sense of humiliating defeat. While bin Laden hid in Afghanistan, the Taliban did publicly condemn the 9/11 attacks, but that nuance was largely lost on much of the American public. To many, the Taliban and al-Qaeda were one and the same. In reality, their goals and ideologies were not fully aligned, though the Taliban had undeniably allowed al-Qaeda to operate training camps on Afghan soil and had refused to extradite bin Laden when asked. The U.S. felt that it had to respond. Today, the war is widely seen as a catastrophe, but in the early 2000s, most Americans were willing to do whatever it took to bring the perpetrators of 9/11 to justice. And while bin Laden hadn't officially claimed responsibility yet, he was still thinking about how to turn American power on itself. In his 2002 letter to the American people, he laid out his grievances in a rambling manifesto, one that mixed anti-Semitic conspiracies about Jewish control of the U.S. with religious justification for mass murder. He wrote, "It is a sin to kill a person without proper justifiable cause, but terminating his killer is a right." He even quoted Thomas Paine, the British revolutionary, who had once urged Americans to rise up against the oppressive British Empire. Bin Laden was no idiot. As he often did, he tried to attract Americans already disillusioned with the government. The military-industrial complex, the Endless War, corporate profiteering. He warned that the war on terror would drain the U.S. economy, drag on indefinitely, and enrich only a powerful few, while most Americans suffer. Despite the manifesto's anti-Semitism and the outlandish claim that HIV was a satanic American invention, many of the criticisms echoed what U.S. left-wing activists and intellectuals had been saying for many years. But whatever rhetorical attraction bin Laden might have gained, he likely lost when he shifted to advocating Sharia law and revenge through bloody terror. Here was a man with extreme backward views on how societies should function, trying to hijack the language of Western progressives and critical realists. He blended legitimate grievances with fanatical ideology, using outrage to justify the wholesale murder of innocents. It was less about justice and more about planting seeds of chaos, an effort to elevate himself by appealing to the alienated and the angry. Russia would do something similar in the years ahead, spreading content featuring legitimate concerns to instigate disorder, to polarize, and to discredit the organs of power. In some ways, bin Laden was trolling America. But it wasn't until 2004 that bin Laden publicly admitted to masterminding the attacks. In an 18-minute video, he promised to bankrupt the U.S., reminding his audience how a band of guerrillas had once brought down the Soviet Empire. His message, if you don't want another Manhattan, then stop meddling in Muslim nations. He then tried to undermine President Bush, saying, "It never occurred to us that the commander-in-chief of the country would leave 50,000 citizens in the two towers to face those horrors alone at the time when they most needed him." But rather than divide Americans, the speech backfired. It only strengthened Bush's lead in the upcoming election against Democratic nominee Senator John Kerry. Both men vowed to bring bin Laden to justice. Barbarians, Kerry called them, but most Americans believed Bush was the man for the job. If bin Laden had hoped to stir unrest inside the U.S., it wasn't working. While support for the Iraq War had started to decline, especially as it dragged on and WMDs never surfaced, Americans were still reeling. In 2004, 9/11 was still an open wound. So was the 2002 killing of journalist Daniel Pearl by Islamic extremists. Pearl, who had been covering the war on terror and al-Qaeda, had been kidnapped by the British Pakistani terrorist Ahmed Omar Saeed Sheikh in support of the holy war against the U.S. The kidnappers posted a demand for Pakistani terror detainees to be released from American prisons and for the U.S. to move forward with a halted shipment of F-16s to Pakistan. Despite entreaties from his family and U.S. intelligence efforts to find the site where he was being held, He was brutally beheaded 9 days later in a horrific video that lasted 3 minutes and 36 seconds. As intended, it struck fear in the heart of the Western world. It disgusted people, but that was always the point. It's still believed that bin Laden disapproved of the beheading videos, not out of mercy, but because they were bad for public relations, especially while he was still trying to sway disillusioned Americans to turn against their own government. He hadn't ordered or explicitly condoned the gruesome murder of Pearl, but he didn't condemn it either. In his letters, he often framed such acts as justified responses to imperialism. He was right about one thing: those videos damaged his image. But he never stopped trying to persuade the world that the Americans, not him, were the tyrants. In 2007, on the 6th anniversary of 9/11, he released another propaganda video. His message was again aimed squarely at Americans who had grown skeptical of their country's wars. His hair noticeably darker, possibly dyed. He took on a laundry list of political flashpoints that had long divided Americans. He promised justice through vengeance, called the U.S. media and Hollywood propaganda machines, and accused the government of waging wars while pretending to stand for liberty and equality. He referred to the treatment of Native Americans as a Holocaust, mentioned the atomic bombs dropped on Japan, and he called the Iraq War a betrayal of America's democratic values. He also invoked Vietnam, claiming 2 million innocent villagers had died. He even floated the idea that John F. Kennedy had been assassinated because he wanted to withdraw troops, saying that corporations were the primary beneficiary from his killing. It was clever in a way. Bin Laden well understood the pulse of American doubt and dissent. He knew many intellectuals, artists, and regular citizens were deeply critical of U.S. foreign policy through what they believed was a sometimes wicked deep state. So again, here was the architect of 9/11 trying to take the moral high ground, a terrorist who murdered indiscriminately, accusing others of bad behavior. But his solution to greed and inequality wasn't justice, it was Sharia law. One law under God, a system that in practice is supported by oligarchs in countries with some of the world's worst human rights records, where a small elite hoards wealth and power, while the majority lives under draconian laws. He was appealing to the Western world, dreaming of a divided America too weak at the top to stop him. 4 al-Qaeda terrorists blew themselves up on public transport during London's rush hour. The same group that plotted to bomb the U.S.-bound transatlantic flights from London in 2006. Bin Laden didn't order the bombings, but letters found at his compound suggested he knew about the plot. Still, in another letter, he wrote that the emphasis should be on America, not other nations. He said, even though we have the chance to attack the British, we should not waste our effort to do so, but concentrate on defeating America, which will lead to defeating the others. He was also aware that some of al-Qaeda's actions had begun to alienate other Muslims around the world. This was something he didn't want to do, writing in 2010 that the jihad was in a new phase to correct the mistakes that had been made. He explained, in doing so, we shall reclaim, God willing, the trust of a large segment of those who lost their trust in the jihadis. His letters suggest there wasn't much unity. He didn't trust al-Qaeda in Iraq, which he said was tarnishing the image of Islam. He felt the same about the Pakistani Taliban, accusing them of making vile mistakes by attacking fellow Muslims. He also sought to distance himself from the Somali group Al-Shabaab for similar reasons. Muslims, he argued, should not attack Muslims, if not for moral reasons, then because it bred poverty, and poverty, he said, was bad for the cause. Privately, he believed the U.S. was drifting toward the perfect setup: war fatigue, political division, and a vice president he considered dangerously unprepared. But then on January 20th, 2009, the tone in the U.S. shifted. Barack Obama was inaugurated president, with Joe Biden sworn in as vice president, elected in part for their anti-militaristic rhetoric. He was intelligent, charismatic, and for many a symbol of change. After what The Guardian called his fairy tale 2008 campaign, much of the public believed a new era of peace and diplomacy had arrived. The mood on the whole was positive, for now at least. For bin Laden, watching from his crumbling compound, Obama's rise was a disaster. His longtime nemesis George Bush was now a global punchline. For many Americans, he was a privileged war hawk, replaced by a progressive icon. The hope and optimism that Obama inspired ran counter to everything bin Laden had worked to undermine. For the first time since the Iraq War began, more people on the planet viewed the U.S. more positively than negatively. So bin Laden proposed a simple solution: kill him. Biden wasn't the backup, he was the opportunity. Bin Laden ordered the assassination of both Obama and General David Petraeus, then head of U.S. Central Command, later director of the CIA. Petraeus had proven effective in Iraq and Afghanistan, and bin Laden viewed him as a serious threat. He wrote, killing either of them would alter the war course. The plan was ambitious, like removing the queen and the rook in a single move, maybe enough to put the king, the entire U.S. government, in check. Both men were planning trips to Afghanistan and Pakistan, and bin Laden hoped that their aircraft could be targeted. He wrote, "Prepare two groups, one in Pakistan and the other in the background area of Afghanistan, with the mission of anticipating and spotting the visits of Obama and Petraeus, to target the aircraft of either one of them." But, and this was important, bin Laden specifically told his men not to target Secretary of Defense Robert Gates, Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman Michael Mullen, or Special Envoy to Pakistan and Afghanistan Richard Holbrooke. In what now reads like a quiet insult, bin Laden didn't consider them worth the effort. More critically, he said to leave Vice President Joe Biden alone, not out of any personal sympathy, but because, in his words, Biden was unprepared. Obama to him represented the strength and unity. Killing Obama, he reasoned, would elevate Biden, and that, he believed, would push the U.S. into chaos. He explained Obama is the head of infidelity, and killing him automatically will make Biden take over the presidency. Biden is totally unprepared for that post, which will lead the U.S. into a crisis. In bin Laden's fantasy, a President Biden would freeze under pressure and allow al-Qaeda the breathing room it needed to rise again. A Biden presidency would stall decision-making, confuse the chain of command, and leave the Pentagon second-guessing. In bin Laden's view, Biden was too cautious and hesitant, and that was the opening al-Qaeda needed to regroup and strike again. There was another reason Osama wasn't a big fan of Obama. It turned out Obama wasn't quite the advocate for peace that he claimed to be. By the end of Obama's presidency, his civil liberties record had taken a serious hit, but when it came to hunting extremists, he was relentless. Every Tuesday, a classified kill list landed on his desk, dubbed Terror Tuesday, a list of names and faces to be erased by drone. In his memoir, he recalled that under Bush, there had been a top 20 list, and whenever one name was removed, another would rise to fill it. The joke in intelligence circles went, al-Qaeda's HR department must really struggle to fill the number 21 slot. Obama would not leave the office with clean hands, far from it. He became the undisputed drone king. Over the course of his presidency, he authorized 542 drone strikes, resulting in the deaths of almost 3,800 people, including, by official count, 324 civilians. Independent estimates put the civilian death toll somewhere between 380 and 800. When trying to take out Ayman al-Zawahiri, al-Qaeda's number 2 and bin Laden's eventual successor, the CIA accidentally killed 76 children and 29 innocent adults. Al-Zawahiri, one of the masterminds behind the U.S. 1998 embassy bombings that killed hundreds, wasn't killed until 2022, long after Obama left office. Still, Obama was a nightmare for the terrorists, and that included bin Laden. Bin Laden had no way of knowing that the man he once plotted to assassinate would become the architect of a whole new era of American warfare. Obama would greenlight 10 times more drone strikes than George W. Bush. Under his watch, the skies over Pakistan, Yemen, and Somalia buzzed with the sound of targeted assassinations. And it wasn't just drones. He would also double down on special forces operations. But the fact was, bin Laden was no longer the poster boy for global jihad. For some of his supporters, his shine had faded. Al-Qaeda had franchised out, and many of its new branches seemed uninterested in his handwritten advice. As we have seen, he complained often about optics. Too much brutality, too many attacks on fellow Muslims. By 2010, he was 57, and his grand plan to bleed America to the point of bankruptcy looked more like a pipe dream. Many Americans had already been bled dry by their own banks in the 2008 crash, and few blinked when Obama ensured that almost no one responsible went to prison. If Wall Street's crimes couldn't shake people's faith in capitalism, what chance did a mass murderer like bin Laden have? So his influence was waning in terms of global publicity, but he was still at the top of Obama's kill list. For years, U.S. intelligence had received tips that he was hiding in Pakistan, captured al-Qaeda operatives, some during a few days of Guantanamo-enhanced interrogation. Still, the Pakistani government denied everything. It didn't help that U.S. intelligence was often contradictory, but on May 2nd, 2011, the U.S. administration had enough information on bin Laden's whereabouts, and Operation Neptune Spear was launched. The onus was to capture, not to kill, but only if bin Laden and his men surrendered. Well, that's what the CIA told the media. It's since been confirmed by officials that the capture part was merely for, quote, appearance's sake and to fulfill requirements of international law. More than 20 men from SEAL Team 6, armed with MP7s, HK-416 assault rifles, and Mark 48 machine guns stormed the house. Chinooks were waiting in the wings, and after a brief firefight, bin Laden was shot and killed. along with al-Kuwaiti, his brother, his brother's wife, and bin Laden's teenage son. The man who masterminded 9/11 was surrounded by female family members, one of whom was shot in the leg. Robert J. O'Neill, who claims to have fired the fatal shot, said bin Laden pushed one of the women forward to shield himself, a fitting end for a cowardly terrorist. However, another SEAL later claimed O'Neill shot bin Laden after he was already wounded and on the floor, casting doubt on the officials and on the floor. Ironically, it was Joe Biden who had opposed the mission. According to multiple officials present, including CIA Director Leon Panetta and Defense Secretary Robert Gates, Biden urged waiting for new intelligence, questioning whether bin Laden was really in the conflict. His main concern was the potential political fallout if the raid failed. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton also recalled Biden's skepticism in her memoir. Nonetheless, the mission proceeded and succeeded, despite his reservations. News of the death leaked online before Obama made it official in a televised address. He stated, "Tonight, I can report to the American people and to the world that the United States has conducted an operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the leader of al-Qaeda and a terrorist who was responsible for the murder of thousands of innocent men, women, and children." Former President George W. Bush later added, "The fight against terror goes on, but tonight America has sent an unmistakable message. No matter how long it takes, justice will be done." In the end, bin Laden's plan to elevate Biden was more fantasy than strategy. Had it worked, would it have reignited the jihadist momentum or just delayed the inevitable? We'll never know, but one thing is certain, the man bin Laden hoped would lead America did exactly that, just not on his terms and not for his cause. Bin Laden's plot may have failed, but just how far does the U.S. go to protect its leaders? Watch the insane protection of the President of the United States to find out what the Secret Service really does. Or click
I'm back. This time I'm going to give you a sneak peek of what my normal Friday street food is like. Let's go. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday street. I go a rest-ish on Thursday. And then I have credit strength on Friday. And then I have Thursday, which is a street food. Sometimes we add in some street cookies. We get the area and we do it in cookies and we do it good. We're getting good. I will be doing something on my cardio after the games are over in Bananza. Usually after my cardio is finished, I start getting like 20 minutes and I have two things to replenish my sugar, my carbs, my energy. I have a go-go sleeve, applesauce, and a cardio drink. I've been digging the one primitive matching sets recently. So today I'm rounding it out. Otherwise known as a hamburger. The other day I wore this brown top and then yellow Spanish. Like they said I look like a cheeseburger. So today I'm going for a hamburger look. You know, I'm about to be meaty. Get meaty. Tongued out, lunged out. The first 2 weeks, diamond bench press. And remember this is my beautiful road barbell. Save my elbows. Today I am working on keeping my elbows in for bench press. Working on getting into it. On Tuesday I do moderate bench press. It's really for then going more into it. So one thing I love about using this barbell is kind of like unstable. Kind of like I am sometimes mentally. It engages my muscles because I can't just relax up here. I have to squeeze everything in this arm to keep it straight. Therefore, I'm engaging my muscles. Therefore, I blow up my muscles from here. Bigger. And then I let my first breath out of the long time. So you can put my mind on this because I'm getting on this bottle. And I'm not going to fail. I can fail on fire. I can fail on fire. Oh, fantastic Friday. What you're seeing today, Friday, is actually the last week, the last day of my 6-week cycle. So it's all these things building up to this. A good cycle, you can identify it as occurring and it should look like what it is on paper. So the 6 weeks was very similar, but the percentages slowly increased, or the reps slowly increased, or the reps slowly decreased. It's progressively looking the same each week. That's how you identify this cycle. It should be boring, but it's really good in how you can work it. Set the clock. I'm going to do 1 rep, 1 high, and then rest 2 minutes, release, and then do 4 reps of the 65. Rest 2 minutes again. I'm going for the 67. I'm going to do it. Here we go. Too easy. Why not round up to even 200? Like, don't give me $195. Give me 200. So, it goes 200. Might as well. Give me the big money. I'm counting it. Fridays are good days. Honestly, they're usually the longest days for my strength day, which you'll see by what I have later. But I do usually on Friday get a case of like senioritis, where I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to be done with my strength. It's 1 more week that I'm out of work. And we're just like checking off the week and we're ready to be done. So last 200 was a little close, but believe in me. It's like me first. I'm going to have it.
Okay.
It was close. Like, I know when I don't got it, and I know when I got it. That's why I don't like this spot. Water might have jumped in and saved me, but it was on the trajectory. Diamond wings. I'm looking for it. Hard spot. I know what you're thinking. That's not really pushing muscles. Correct. On Monday, I do lunges, so unilateral leg work. On Wednesday, I do back squats. On Friday, I do front squats. So I'm hitting kind of every variation of work I can. And what I'm going to do is a 2-rep max. So build up to really heavy. 3 reps. And 2 power chains. But I have to hold 2 seconds in the hold. So I'll do this front squat for 50 seconds in the hold, stand it up. Another one, handstand go with chains. This past year at the Tier Cup in SoCal, I clean and jerk 250. And I really feel like this drill and got a shirt off is going to be the clean 250. Because it builds up everything. And chains just make everything so much better. I always thought chains would just to look cool, sound cool. But I quickly realized chains make the difference. So if you think about it logically, this is the chain. When it's stretched out in max capacity, it is the heaviest. And it's at the bottom here, it is extremely light. So at the bottom of my squat, it is extremely light. But as I pull up the squat, it gets heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. If you count the squat, that's when it's the heaviest, and that's when I have to grind the most to stand it up. So logically, I get it. Chains are not just for show and looking cool. For exercises like this, your knees are OG tips. So it's perfect. Both of these on and the chains are just sitting right there. So these things are perfect. I don't know how much it weighs. I really don't really know how to do it. But I have on the men's side. This weighs 185. And I'm having on each side. So whatever this equals, we'll try and start it twice. Okay, 2 seconds holding the bottom. 2 chains. 2 chains. And it's up. There's no beef with chains. They look really beefy and they sound beefy. So it's not loud. I'm intimidated so much. I'm going to go 8 dumbbell bench press with 270s in each hand. And now I'm concentration. I'm going to go 8 crab fifties with vertical bars, 8 curls to the bar, 8 lateral raises, 8 front raises. So today is very much kind of like a body presentation, but just promoting pumping up the muscles. I think doing stuff like this, single movement isolation, helps my shoulders stay healthy, helps everything stay healthy, and it feels good, of course. So then the next 6 sets of that, and I'm done for the day. Remember, this is the last day of the 6-week cycle. Remember, I originally did this, started with 12, and then 10, now I'm on 8. So 90% was 166, prior to 185. About 90% or whatever. 166, I rounded up to 170 because when you get stronger, you round up. You know, your strength squats, you gotta round up. Nah. It's math.
3 plus 2 is 4. Minus 1 is 3.
I have to be very intentional here. Once I finish one set, I rest 3 minutes and I go again. If I am not intentional, each set takes 10 minutes because it's 6 full sets of this. And then I'm in here for an hour just thinking just a minute. So try and be intentional with my rest. Get it done. Don't rush it. I want to get done because I have tinnitus. It's Friday. I'm ready to get out of the gym. So looking there, go down side of the fold. You down side of the fold in the front squat, you just defeated the basic. You go from nothing to 8. 8, moving down to 3, keeping everything tight. It's a 70, so it's pretty hard. If it gets off balance by any means, it's too heavy to save it. Try to get everything off balance and let's try not to show the I'm not really technical name for those. I call them tricep knees. You start and end basically in a 45-degree angle. You always keep tension in your arms and your triceps. The whole time, I control the negative just to build up the muscle more and then exploding. Keeping it in tension, you don't want to rest at the top because you're trying to build your arms. Seated. That way I'm not rocking back and forth, moving my hips, using anything to hold it up. I try and move my elbows to my side, extending them all the way up, extending them all the way down. Really just focusing on isolating the muscle. I'm not trying to lean back, I'm not trying to rock it up. Just really focusing on the rolling of the bicep, lateral raises. Slowly control, keep anything, rock anything, pretend you're a bird. Move my arms to the floor, move the way back, all the way back. For the front raises, same thing. I try to keep it together, I try to do my hip forward, squeezing my butt forward, so I don't arch too much, and I try not to rock anything. I'm just using whatever muscles and whatever are there to lift it up, lift it back down. I swear doing is literally my marathon, that much. But every time I film a YouTube video, he magically comes home from lunch. Like last night, he came home at 10:40 p.m. I have 2 competitions coming up, business and his bullying, which is a blessing, so he's working later. You don't get to see him. He'll come home for lunch again. Watch me be slowly. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. Just find a way to read up married. WCA you'll get bored, but if you try it, if you try any of my street stuff, I'm a winner. I would love to know your opinions. Love to know how your reasons go. What week I went. I wouldn't say it's my hardest week, but this is like the end of my whole week. And I can tell I'm working hard because I'm sick and really feeling painful. So that's why I was like, oh, this is really good. Usually I go to sleep at 12 midnight, and the middle of my sleep, my nose is up. So I woke up this morning and my nose ring is nowhere to be found. I could tell my nose got hurt, it's still out. So I don't know what happened to my sleep. I slept hard and I slept early. And I've been nursing since 2012, right in high school. My best friend came to my house. She was her nurse here. She was like, oh, my nurse here. So we literally designed 2 months of it. She grabbed a needle and then just stabbed it. And I'm like, you? So I got this one. I got my nose pierced. I don't know why my nose is just a little bit. I feel like I have a good girl, goody goody persona-ish. The nose ring just gives me a little bit of very special. I don't know what to. I don't think it's bad. That's just a little 6 weeks after it's over. I was 3 weeks with the DOGs and then 3 weeks. Ending my 6 weeks after. It's always a little bittersweet for me. It's exciting. And I'm proud of the time and effort and the job done. Like a huge check mark and the consistent of 6 weeks. I pushed through. But it's also sad because it's like, okay, I'm getting better, I'm getting better, I'm getting better. And now I think like there's nowhere to go. Now my second step is like, did I do enough? Did I push harder? Am I strong enough? And now there's like enough time and a little bit of sadness and like, and you can't choose anymore because all this fucking big stuff is coming in. So this is like, I'm gonna try my best to see what I can do. Some competitions. Next competition is top again. First week in August. The next competition is that. End of August is the last version to be good. That's 3 big competitions for me. So right now, to see how fit I am. Make sure y'all are commenting, sharing my episodes on Instagram, encouraging me to do more videos. I've only done 1, and y'all like 2, 3, 4. That's because of you guys. I appreciate it. I'm glad you guys help keep going me to a higher. Okay. $240. So what's that mean? How heavy are they?
7 pounds at the tip of your tongue.
35 pounds per side.
What an adventure!
All right. Time to get moving. So, enough donkey